Thank you, Chairman. And I'd like to thank the symposium organizers for giving me the opportunity to speak at this very important meeting today. I'm going to talk about shifting communication models so that municipalities have more flexibility in communicating about nuclear emergencies, as well as the challenges experienced given that one size does not fit all. So in the province of Ontario, an earlier communication model had the province controlling every aspect of communication during a nuclear emergency from the top down. As you can imagine, this arrangement was proven to be slow and cumbersome and did not meet the needs of local communities very well. So the new model involved establishing municipal emergency information centres, or EICs, in each of Ontario's designated nuclear communities. So now the current system looks like this. Communities are responsible for handling the information that would be most important locally, and the province is responsible for disseminating provincial emergency information. There is, of course, significant coordination between the two, and the result is more effective and timely communication across the board with consistent messaging. The concept is to make emergency communication more responsible to an evolving situation. It certainly removes some burden from the province, but it was also done in response to the desire by communities to have more flexibility. This ensures that prompt, coordinated local information about preparing for, responding to, and recovering from a nuclear emergency is disseminated to the public, the media, the province, and other stakeholders. So Emergency Management Ontario called us in to develop guidelines to help nuclear communities establish EICs. So when you think about the characteristics of a nuclear community in Ontario, there's really only one thing to keep in mind. About the only commonality is that we use the word nuclear to describe them, and even that can come into question, as we'll see later. So here's a little tour through nuclear communities in Ontario. Durham Region is home to 2 nuclear generating stations operated by Ontario Power Generation in Pickering and Darlington, and the population in the area is around 650,000 people. Toronto is Canada's largest city, with 2.8 million people in the city and over 4 million in the Greater Toronto Area. It doesn't have a reactor, but it's in such close proximity to Durham that a nuclear crisis happening there is also a problem for Toronto. And Kincardine is home to the Bruce nuclear generating station operated by Bruce Power. It's basically a rural area with around 11,000 inhabitants. And Amherstburg is located near the mouth of the Detroit River. Like Toronto, it doesn't have a reactor, but the Fermi 2 plant in Michigan is in close proximity, just across the Detroit River in the United States. And the towns of Deep River and Laurentian Hills are situated near the Chalk River Laboratories research facility. It's been there since around 1944, and many locals have family members that have worked at the facility over its many decades. The population, about 7,000 people, has a pretty matter-of-fact attitude to the whole concept of nuclear energy. So right off the bat, we knew that we would have a diversity of operational realities to contend with. Some communities might have a staff of 1 managing communications at any given time. Others could probably field a pretty formidable team of seasoned professional communicators. So we went to work confident that we could design guidelines that were flexible enough to address the needs of all of these communities. We reviewed the legislation, we considered feedback received from a wide range of stakeholders, and we attended a major exercise of a nuclear emergency event happening in Kincardine. And the draft guidelines contained information on the best place to locate an EIC, the material information technology resources required, operations, planning, staffing, training and exercises, risk communication best practices, and so on. So we sent the guidelines to our key contacts in each of the designated nuclear communities, gave them some time to review, and went on a road trip to gather feedback in person. The guidelines were well received in Durham, which has a large and experienced communication team, a good relationship with the operator, and a well-exercised ability to handle a crisis. The change was viewed as very beneficial to operations. And in Toronto, we were basically told that they could probably handle any crisis response even better than the province could. And while the guidelines for EICs were a good start, they wanted even more autonomy. Kincardine welcomed the guidelines. The operator is well integrated with the community. In fact, our meeting was hosted by Bruce Power. Coming off the recent exercise, they were looking for ways to improve their crisis comms and interactions. At Amherstburg, we met with the fire chief and a comms official from the city staff. Their main concern was the fact that they were at the mercy of an international relationship, so the pathway of information for them was somewhat tortuous. We discussed some changes to EIC operations that could accommodate reality. When we were setting up the meeting with representatives of Deep River and Laurentian Hills, they were very excited to meet with us to discuss the draft guidelines. They were happy that we chose to get feedback in person because they felt that it was the best way to express their feelings on the matter. So we were buoyed by this enthusiasm and we're seeing success within reach. Have you ever had one of those moments where you really have a good feeling about a situation, only to realize you completely misread all of the signals? The mayor and the city councillors of Deep River were so happy to meet us that they were waiting for us in the parking lot. Information exchange commenced immediately. They began by informing us quite emphatically that they were not a nuclear community. They have no power reactor. They are nowhere near a power reactor. They just have a couple of small research reactors some distance away, and the wind profile is pretty good. So clearly, ongoing issues had not been disclosed to us. They told us about a previous minor incident at Chalk River where attention by international news media had overwhelmed them. The mayor and every official capacity in the two towns was a part-time job. There were no professional comm staff. The mayor's day job was the owner of a local used car dealership. So this change wasn't going to provide them with any flexibility. If interaction with the media was now officially their responsibility, they would collapse under the pressure. We spent the day determining how the guidelines could be modified to meet their reality while still meeting the requirements of the provincial government. And we opened up a dialogue with the municipalities and the province that eventually resulted in a commitment to supply resources during a crisis so the community would not be overwhelmed. Practical tools were recognized as a limiting factor in effectively communicating to the public during nuclear emergency. The issues are complex, the science is often beyond the comprehension of most people, and potential situations are fraught with fear. Luckily, it is possible to draw upon the wider experience and best practices of science and risk communication in translating complex information into plain language without losing the technical integrity of that information. So in addition to customizable guidelines, we developed a comprehensive set of easy-to-use tools to facilitate the activities of those responsible, many of whom are not professional communicators. These included plain language definitions of standard terminology, including technical terms, a standardized set of easy-to-understand plain language public information materials on a wide range of complex subject matter areas related to nuclear emergencies, and samples and templates that could be used by those tasked with public communication in nuclear communities during an emergency. So to wrap up, there's some lessons to be learned here, I think, especially if the promise of implementing small nuclear reactors in remote communities ever comes to fruition. The challenges for communicating about nuclear emergencies will be as diverse as the number of communities involved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anton. If you